Now today we're doing some work on the Honda S2000, and what I'm hearing is a clicking and clunking sound, and I'll talk more about this in a moment. But what we're going to do is tackle something that I believe is the problem, and we'll also jack up the vehicle. We'll look over the drive shaft, we'll take a look at the axles, just look at certain things that you can look at, and I can give you some pointers regarding your vehicle. So like I said, I'm hearing a slight clunking sound. Now in my case, I'm at a dead stop. Let's say, for example, I'm at a red light. And then once I start to move forward, right off the line, there's a slight clunking sound. Even reversing out of a parking spot, I hear it. But once the car is moving, I'm fine. There's no sound whatsoever. And what I did, and this is the best thing you could do some research specifically on your vehicle. And within a minute or so, I dug up that there is a TSB, or in other words, a technical service bulletin. So what they recommend is to remove it, clean it up, put some grease, apply it back on the axle, torque it down, and that's what we're going to do today. But also, I'll jack up the car. I want to take a look at the axles and also the drive shaft. Now you don't have to remove the wheel to remove the center cap. I just have a small chisel and just wrap it with microfiber or something to protect it. Gently place it where you want it to go, so right in this ridge. And then I have a rubber mallet and just lightly tap. Oops, as you can see, it's slippery. Okay. Now removing an axle nut is actually very simple with just basic hand tools. You'll see what I'm going to use in a moment. And then we have an indentation here. Some guys like to remove it without lifting up the indentation, but I'm just going to, just a flathead, lightly tap. Okay, that's really more than enough. And then in this case, we have a 36mm socket. I'll have links below in the description box if you need any tools, okay? And then a breaker bar. This is the key thing, breaker bar. Now this breaker bar is roughly 19 inches in length. It's a 1/2 inch drive. And then I have a piece of pipe that goes over the end. Okay, this is from Home Depot, everything else is from Amazon. And then look at the leverage I have here, because these are really tight. Put your weight into it. And there you go. So now I'm going to remove the surface rust. I'm going to use a Dremel. You can even use some sandpaper. This is 800 grit. It's a little too fine. Even like 400 would be okay. A wire brush just to clean the inside of the fastener here. Then I have some, this is just wheel bearing grease. If you have assembly grease or assembly lube, that would probably be even better. But then we'll reapply this, torque it down to 180 foot-pounds, and then go an additional 60 degrees. This is 400 grit. Again, I'll have links in the description box below to Amazon. Okay, works really nicely. And then some axle grease right on the end of the nut. And then we're going to reinstall this, and let's jack up the car. Make sure everything else looks to be in good shape. So again, I'm going to torque this down to 180 foot-pounds and then rotate it an additional 60 degrees. Now, I know that from the service bulletin. That's why it's really important just to do some research on your vehicle. Also check for recalls. You never know, you may have a recall on your vehicle as well. Now, 180 foot-pounds is quite a lot, so you need to put a lot of strength into this. Okay. Okay, now we need to go another 60 degrees. Now I'm making a reference point so I know how far I've turned the fastener. I can already see before the indentation was up here, now it's already past, so these were too loose. It's a well-known problem with these S2000s, or an issue I should say. Don't forget your safety glasses. So if you take a look, this is where the axle nut was before. You can see the indentation, it was right here. Now it's all the way down here. So it was clearly too loose. I don't want to use this chiseled. I don't want to use this one because I know it's going to slice it in half. This is a little bit thicker. So as you can see right here, even that's a little too sharp, you can tell. But that's alright. We can put the cap back on. Okay. Now once the vehicle is safely jacked up and on jack stands, 3 and 9 o'clock, shake the wheel. It's nice and tight as you can see. And then the 12 and the 6, this will check the ball joint. This is something I showed some time ago on a Subaru with worn ball joints, and you'll see it actually moving if it is worn. But everything here is nice and tight. Do that on both sides. So now I'm taking a look at the axles. This runs all the way, right here's the diff. I'm directly below it. And the axle runs all the way to that center nut. So you have an outer, as you can see right there, an outer boot and an inner boot. So all that I'm doing, the car is in neutral, it's not in gear, and I'm just rotating the wheel while looking at this boot. Check for cracks, check for grease, any damage. The other thing to check are the bands. So right here you have these bands that hold on the boot, and sometimes they will loosen up. A lot of times if you need to replace this, it's cheaper just buying a brand new one as opposed to removing it, rebuilding it. You can rebuild these by all means, but a lot of times, even if you don't do it, a shop will charge you more to rebuild it as opposed to just slapping it out with a brand new one. So this is the driver's side. I'll do the same thing on the passenger side off camera. And now, right here, leading into the diff and going all the way to the transmission, this is the drive shaft. Sometimes it's also called a prop shaft. Let me also get a little bit closer here. Okay, and lastly is the drive shaft. Now, what you want to check for is excessive play at the joints. Typically, if the joints go, you may feel vibration at the bottom of your seat. You may feel vibration throughout the whole car. Maybe at certain speeds, and maybe at a number of different speeds. There's actually weights on these, counterweights. You see right here? Same thing you find on your wheels. So to check for excessive play, check how I move this. Okay, you see how it's moving back and forth. Now take a look at the axles as I do this. You see there's a corresponding, very slightly, but both axles are corresponding to this very, very small movement. So everything looks to be okay here. There's even a mount for the differential, which you have a rubber mount over here, another one over here. They're not cracked. Everything looks to be in good shape. And of course, the reason why we looked at or we placed our hands at the 3, the 9, the 12, and the 6 o'clock position was to check for ball joints, tie rod ends. So any rubber mounts, you want to check everything. The biggest advice or the best advice I can give you, look at your car specifically. A lot of times, especially in this case, the car's 21 years old. By this point, other owners have similar issues, and you can pinpoint what's going on. So let's take the car for a quick test drive, make sure that we're okay. This is a great car, by the way, a great car. So I'm going to pull into a hotel parking lot, and let's do a couple of standing starts and see how we turn out. Okay, let's give it a shot. Let's start with first gear. Nothing. Let me try reverse. Yeah, it's 100 times better. I don't hear anything. So that's all it was. Like I said, do a little research on your car. If there's a technical service bulletin probably pointed, or you really pinpointed what's wrong with the car or your vehicle. But that's all it was. Something very simple, didn't cost any money. and we're good to go. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.